we're live. I don't know if that's true, but I guess we'll find out as we go. It's a Thursday. It's the Mattriarchy. I am, of course, your host, Matthew Rhys. And joining me today are Frank Martin and Nandor Fox Schaefer. I've never met these people before, so we're going to have a good time getting to know each other and talking about comics. So, first of all, how are you guys doing this evening?
Tired.
I guess tired but excited.
Yeah. Tired is the best way to do a 2-hour talk show, let me tell you.
Yeah, that gets the adrenaline going, you know.
I like to really like put at the end of a day and having driven like for 3 hours and just sort of like, so I'm real frazzled. That always makes for the best for people that tune in there.
Caffeine is needed, so.
Actually, I left my coffee on a shelf over that way. I should go get it here in a second. So, now you guys, both of you, like I said, I have to say I didn't know either of you all, and that's fine. You both reached out to me, which is weird because I have this little YouTube show that like 30 people watch. So, but I got to have people come on and talk about stuff. So I'm glad to have you on there. Frank, tell me, how did you get into making comics?
Well, I started in prose. I was always a big prose writer. I loved writing stories in elementary school, and I kind of just never stopped. We move into fan fiction is kind of the natural progression. Everybody wants to write for their own characters. And then I started writing my own original short stories, own original novels. And at some point in time, I realized I like writing stories. I like reading comics. I could write a comic. Like, that's easy. I could just put the two together. And it turns out it's not that simple. So I took my lumps. I climbed the steep learning curve, and I've been doing it for a couple of years now. And it's you always learn something new. You can never master the craft. So
did you grow up reading comics?
I did. I remember being like a little kid, and every once in a while grabbing a book, whether from the rack at like the grocery store, the drugstore, the bookstore. Every once in a while I would read comics, but I never read it consistently until I got sucked into that whole Marvel evil marketing scheme of Ultimate Universe, where they revamp everything.
Oh man,
I bought that whole thing hook, line, and sinker.
Oh man, I cannot even express to you how much loathing I have for the Ultimate Universe.
I loved everything. Ultimate Spider-Man, the Ultimate X-Men. I mean, it started to lose its mission statement after a while, and it wasn't the same. But yeah, from there I transitioned over to the 616, and then eventually to indie books, and then DC. It's a slippery slope, man. It's just you go straight down.
No, I totally relate to the slippery slope aspect of it. And then I'll ask you, Nandor. My personal story is I started getting into comics through DuckTales, the cartoon, back in the early 90s. And I moved into Scotts Bluff, where I live now, and there was a whole lot of not access to my favorite TV show, which was DuckTales. I couldn't go on and see it. So I because of all of that, I went through and I was at the grocery store, and I saw they had, DuckTales and Uncle Scrooge Adventures comics up there at the grocery store. And so I was like, ooh, Duck's doing adventure stuff. This is great. And so I was flipping through the books and reading them all, whatever else. And right next to it happens to be Batman. And I'm like, I remember Batman. And that was it. That was sort of the thing.
I mean, it's funny how it comes full circle, because they just rebooted DuckTales.
Yes.
On Disney XD.
That's right.
I love watching that with my kids. Every time the theme song comes on, it turns into a dance party in our house. And I've been reading DuckTales comics to them from the reboot. So it's you stay around long enough, it's just recycling everything back over.
And Carl Barks was the kind of the guy who kind of made DuckTales what it was, even though I think he had passed away by the time the show was out. He was the idea guy back in the Uncle Scrooge Adventures in like the 40s and 50s, and he invented Uncle Scrooge. He invented the Junior Woodchucks, the all of that stuff, and so it was his stuff was phenomenal. And like if you go back at it, great character, great stuff on it. So I really enjoyed it. Nandor, how did you get into comics?
Oh man, as a early toddler, no, like I grew up, I grew up with comics. I mean, it was something that my brother and I shared a lot, kind of growing up. It's something we bonded over to, and so there was a lot of history there. I always really enjoyed the early superhero films, like from the '90s and early 2000s before like the MCU. Like growing up, I'd watch, the first three X-Men and all those ones before the MCU came out, and then it's really started. And I'd go to the bookstores and I would look through the like Marvel and DC encyclopedias and all of those. I wanted to know about all the characters, and then I wanted to figure out like who were my favorites, and my brother and I would always, fight over who we liked, and like whose character, like okay, you like Batman, so I like this guy, and all that. But it really started. I started getting comics on a monthly basis when my brother bought me an issue of Captain America. I believe it was issue 46 by Ed Brubaker and Steve Epting, and that whole run by Brubaker and Epting with the death of Captain America, and then when Bucky took the mantle, and that introduced me to. It made Captain America my favorite character, and then I got into Matt Fraction's Iron Man. So that whole kind of architect era before in the heroic age, little before then though, that's when I really started to collect and get into them. So I guess it kind of started early with the movies, and then I got into comics, and then I know more about the Marvel and DC universe than I do about the real world, like from growing up with it. And, I say that, kind of unashamedly because, I love writing comics. I love the art form. I think it's honestly one of the, if not, the best way to kind of express yourself, narratively and visually. And, you can do so much within a comic, that if you were to do in a movie, budget wise would almost be impossible, but you can do that in a comic. And that's what makes them, to me, such a beautiful art form, and really sophisticated and interesting to get into. So, it's really in my DNA. Like, I just grew up with them, and I've been reading comics since, I could read really, and they really, besides reading Star Wars novels growing up, comics, were kind of like how I got to learn about literature, really, and just all the different, ways you can tell a story, and my vocabulary and everything really comes from comics in general.
It's funny how you mentioned more about the history of comics than the real world in the Marvel universe, because that era of comics when Bendis and Millar were in control of the Marvel archives, it really created a whole narrative as far as how it all played out between Disassembled and then House of M, Avengers and Civil War, and then Secret Invasion, and then Dark Reign. It was a sequence of world events, how it all triggered.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you really did feel like you were there, and everything felt so like knit together, and so like grounded in how they were really telling each character's story. And it was like they were bringing the characters kind of to a modern age, or a new world. It felt like a new generation of superheroes with, I think with the death of Captain America and how that affected the entire Marvel universe, they really did a good job at making the world coherent, more so. And that's something that I think they've kind of gotten away from recently, and it's something that I've always enjoyed about the way Marvel did their stories compared to DC. Even though I love DC, I'm totally DC fanboy, but I always enjoyed how Marvel really made everything that happened in an event or in one book and made it, really cross over and tie in with the other titles.
I like that time of Marvel. I mean, a lot better than now. I just looking back, I realized I had a lot more Marvel titles on my pull list.
Yeah, exactly.
And I get a lot of flack for this. I might be in the minority, but I jumped on the DC bandwagon during the New 52, so that was when I was introduced to a lot of those characters.
Yeah, right.
And even we're back.
Back? Okay.
Okay, I'm back.
I was talking about how I jumped on in the New 52.
Okay.
And that was my introduction to DC, and a lot of old school DC fans didn't really like it. But for me, we were talking about how Marvel, it became during that golden age of Marvel, it looked like a sequence of events, like you were actually part of a world. And I got that same feeling with New 52, really, when they had the introduction of the Justice League, and then they had Trinity War, and then they had Forever Evil. It just felt like a seamless sequence of events, like it was all part of the same cohesive world. And I really like New 52. So
yeah, I really can't comment. Oh, hey, it says that the stream crashed there. I don't know. Maybe we're back because I'm getting I looked over to YouTube quick on that and see because I forgot to plug my computer in and it.
Oh, okay.
And then I plugged it in and I didn't have the power strip on. So
it's always something.
So we'll see here. Let's see if it's caught up because mine's not actually playing. Let's see. There I'm gone. It's dead. Okay. Yeah. It looks like it died. So I think we're still on Facebook, but it looks like we're dead on Twitter. I mean on YouTube.
Okay.
I'm going to try something that worked before. Let's see if it does. On Facebook. Oh, hey, my mom's here. She can see us on Facebook. We're gonna actually kill it and see if I can come back. Oh, popped up a few bugs. Oh, Tim says we're back. So maybe it's just my YouTube that's not there. Let's see here. Okay. You're not dead on YouTube. Well, then I won't do anything. And we're gonna keep going.
Neostar said, I just realized something. Didn't World War Hulk take place after Civil War?
Yes.
It did. It did. That was another one of those huge events. It was if the events now feel forced and the tie-ins feel like gimmicks.
And here's part of my take.
Everything felt together.
This is my take, and this is me being a super old fuddy-duddy, right? In fact, one of the theme shows that I routinely do one of the theme shows I routinely do about every 6 weeks or so is I get a bunch of old guys together and we kvetch about how comics used to be better, and including my old. I used to write a column for the DC fan magazine Fanzine.
Oh, okay.
Back 20 years ago now. That's how old I am, and it's really funny. I was going through the archives, the Fanzine archives, earlier this week, and people were complaining about exactly the same things in comics 20 years ago they are today, which is why the industry is dying.
Depending on how old you are, the golden age either refers to 20 years ago, or 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It does.
So, but anyway, the back to what I was saying is I can't remember where I got off on that. So anyway, I actually think that Civil War was when the Marvel Universe died. I think that like it betrayed its own premises to have this event that was just an excuse to dunk on George W. Bush, and if you read if you were conversant with the universe before that, right, then and this is one thing, like Frank, since you say you came on with the Ultimates, you might not notice that because the Ultimates was also like a pissing all over classic Marvel. Like it was either like in the case of Ultimate Spider-Man was basically just like what Stan Lee did with 12 pages, Brian Michael Bendis did in 6 months. right? That was essentially all of the beats were identical up until Pete died. There really wasn't any derivation. And I know this because 4 or 5 years previously, they had released what's called the Spider-Man Saga. It was a 4-volume comics and prose piece that were like these giant-sized books that told Peter's entire adventure, right? Mm-hmm. So it was chunks of comics, and it was like prose, and you could read through it like a history book. And I was like, this was really cool. And then this Ultimates thing was out there, and it's like, oh, it's Spider-Man for a new generation. And I'm like, okay, I'll check it out. You know, they had them for free up on the internet, and I was working a call center at the time, so I had some downtime. So I'd click through issue, and it was okay. And I was like, I've already read all of this stuff. I guess, wait, Uncle Ben has a ponytail. That's really different. Okay, you got me there. There you go, Marvel. That's it. Except that was in Spider-Man, but then over in Ultimate X-Men, you know, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver were, disgusting.
That was all Jeff Loeb's fault. We have to say it.
I hated Ultimates 3. That was Jeff Loeb's an interesting character because he's put out some books that I think are really, really awesome. And then he puts out some stuff that I'm like, this is absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
And he does
I agree with you.
Concentrated character pieces like his color line for Marvel, or his the Long Halloween, and what was the one with the follow up to Long Halloween?
The
Dark Knight,
Dark Victory.
So those
I haven't reread those. I read those at a time in my life where, like, I don't know what it was I don't know what it was, but like I didn't retain a lot of the details. And I'm usually a guy that like just like absorbs details and talks about them like for a long, long time. But like I barely remember Long Halloween, and I even remember Dark Victory even less. I remember I liked them, but what I didn't like is Dark Victory is basically a rewriting of Batman Year 3 that Wolfman wrote. And Batman Year 3 is already excellent. So, like, him rewriting it, like, it didn't need to happen. Like, there was some weird continuity stuff because of 0 Hour. Because, once again, I'm old. But with that, I didn't think that... I thought Year 3 just needs to be better. Like, people need to read it. I don't think it was that. But when it just wasn't... I don't remember any details about Dark Victory. Like, it just felt lackluster to me because I thought, you know, there was already a perfectly good Robin origin story, and anything that hadn't been told in Batman Year 3 was already told by the Robin Year 1 miniseries that Dixon co-wrote, Dixon and Scott Beatty. There you go. That's once again my cranky old manness.
No, but I think they're never going to stop telling these origin stories of how characters met and how they hooked up and how they trained. So every creator is going to put their own twist on it, their own difference. And you know what? Not for nothing, the publishers are never going to stop putting them out because people are going to never stop buying them. People love to see how the comic characters start. And if you look at 10 different origins, they all conflict with each other, and somehow we still always gone. And Matthew, I know we were to go back to Spider-Man and talk about the beats of Spider-Man's life, but more recently speaking, I don't know if you saw what was it called? It was the Amazing Spider-Man book where he aged in real time by Chip Zdarsky put it out.
Oh yeah, it was. I know it's
Spider-Man through the decades, maybe, or something like that, where he starts off as a teenager in the '60s.
I think it's called Life Story.
Yeah, that might have been it. Yeah. I thought that was a really interesting take. I thought that was pretty cool, and it was different. It wasn't the same thing because obviously, when Spider-Man first encounters Venom in the '80s, he's going to be 40 years old, and now in the 2000s, he's like 60. So it was cool to see how they intertwine the classic Spider-Man stories around real world events, and both him becoming mature and older and kind of a different character.
Yeah.
Are you talking about Marvels?
Yeah. No, not Marvels.
Okay. I guess I haven't read that one, so Yeah, Kurt Busiek's Marvels did a lot to set the stage historically, but it made a lot more sense in the 90s than it does today. So
that was Alex Ross' book, right?
Yeah, Alex Ross did. It was his first thing for Marvel.
No, yeah, I read that. That was pretty good. But they kind of did like a reboot sequel-ish type of thing recently. I think they they did Marvel's X, which I think, well, at least the way my LCS owner described it to me, it was the bridge between Marvel's, and he was eventually going to become Paradise X, or not Earth X.
Mm-hmm.
It was going to take place in the same universe, and that was the series to bridge them. And I read the first one. I'm like, it wasn't for me. So I never got past
Really?
it.
I have to say, like, I'm a massive like Earth X trilogy fan, like Jim Kruger and that whole, like, if you ever want more like Marvel history and like told like basically within the story, I'd recommend reading the Earth X trilogy, because that to me is like, I don't know if you've read it, Matthew, but like to me that's like where I feel like you read it and it feels like Marvel before, Civil War and kind of all of that like realism and groundedness, like tried to like kind of make its way more into the universe. It kept the heroes. I don't necessarily like, maybe it's not the best word for it, but like, more pure, I guess, or like, it's more heroic and kind of like wasn't so interested in, trying to reflect the real world, but was just trying to do its own thing.
I was a huge Earth X guy. I got them all, Earth X universe.
Oh, awesome.
I read the whole thing. I bought into the whole hype of it all, and I really enjoyed it. It was an interesting kind of premise. It was an interesting story, and it definitely had more of a DC feel to it because it was just so fantastical.
Yeah.
In nature.
So give me just a second here. Guana Guy is here, but is having problems getting on. I mean, he's ready. There's a problem to get on, so I'm going to try to send him a link over the link here over Facebook and see if that works better. I think I still have it copied here. Yes.
Neostar asked who. Oh no, you murdered that guy. Asked who is your favorite rogue. I think I have to go with Mirror Master.
Yeah, they have a whole there's a whole side conversation going on there.
I want to jump in on that. Flash rogues are awesome.
Yeah.
Got a great rogues gallery.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys are watching the Flash TV show. I think they're doing a pretty good job with the rogues gallery too.
I watched the first, I think, 3 or 4 seasons, and I haven't caught up yet with the last few.
Yeah, the first season was the best. They kind of get drawn in with the romance, and a lot of the storylines get dragged out. But for the most part, they do a great job of taking villains. I was surprised by the effects. They really nailed it on a.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you there. Like, I didn't know a TV show could have, that production quality and that like, that much quality with their effects, and what they could do with it was like mind blowing when I was watching it.
Yeah, I actually haven't seen it at all. I bought the first 2 seasons on cheap at Walmart. I just haven't seen it. I watched a couple of the episodes when they were when the first season was out, and I don't know, man. I just like something like sort of killed it for me, and I'm not sure what it is. I don't even think I took the plastic off them. They're just sitting on my shelf. So, I don't know, man. Like this is something like for me, like that wasn't the thing, but in the last year, I've sort of given up on all like nerd media. It's like they don't. I don't know. Star Wars, I couldn't care less. Star Trek, I'll never watch it again.
Same.
Like the DC movies, everyone's like, oh, they look really good, and I'm like, they're absolutely going to be crap. And I have no. I'm like a huge Aquaman fan. I really enjoyed the first movie. There is no chance I'm going to watch the second in the theaters. I mean, there isn't. I just don't care. Like, I don't. Something. They just like. I'm. I just don't care. I have no interest in it. And looking at the press that people put out for it, it's like none of you people actually like understand the mythology that's going on here or the storytelling. You have no respect for the creators that came before you. You're just coattail writing. Just go away. I have zero interest.
Aquaman was an interesting case because I never have time to go see movies in the theaters anyway. So I kind of just wait until they're on demand, and I just watch them. So it's not like I paid anything for them. I have the service anyway. But I thought Aquaman was fun. It was goofy. I had a good time watching it, except the problem I had with it, and I'm not saying it was a bad movie because it is what it is. It was just kind of a popcorn flick that was a good time, was that I just got done reading the Jeff Johns first volume, which is essentially what they adapted, or that came with the Ocean Master storyline. Yep. And they flipped it to where in the comics, Ocean Master is a really sympathetic guy. You know, it was a complicated story. He's just trying to be king. He's trying to do his people right. And in the movie, they're like, we're going to get rid of all this nuance, all this great storytelling, and we're just going to make him a straight up bad guy.
So here's the thing, though, right? Once again, coming from the old school comic book fan, like I have not finished reading Jeff Johns stuff. I bought some of it in the DC trades, and I've read some of it. But in the Walmart editions, right? That's not Ocean Master.
What, in the movie or in the new?
No, in the movie, it is Ocean Master.
Yeah.
Right? If Ocean Master is at all sympathetic, that's not Ocean Master at all. Ocean Master is Don John the Bastard from Much Ado About Nothing. He relishes in evil and control because he's jilted, he's angry, he's taking it out on the whole world, right? If you don't acknowledge my superiority, well, then I'll just kill you. And that's who he's supposed to be. I mean, Aquaman doesn't. The whole thing about like when they introduced like the brother angle, right? And this goes all the way back into the '60s. The whole thing is that Aquaman doesn't really want to be king, right?
Right.
He's just the only person that can do the job, right? He's phenomenally good at stuff like that. He's got this personality. People want to follow this dude. He's like, got that thing going on, but he doesn't want it. He wants to have a simple life, like like his dad did. He wants to have a house on the coast. He wants to raise up some kids. He wants to play ball with them and talk to fish. That's all he wants out of life. He wants a simple life, but he can't have a simple life because other people have, because he has to lay aside his desires for the sake of the greater good, right? That's the whole thing, and that's what makes like the Aquaman mirror dynamic so good. Even back in the '60s comics that are written for like 9-year-old girls, is this concept of duty versus desire. It's baked into it. It's just written to an audience for small children. So it's a different kind of thing, and I love that. So. Like the idea of Ocean Master becoming sympathetic in the beginning of the journey, like maybe him growing up and learning that it doesn't work or whatever, that's a different story. But, I don't know. It just falls in the lines of all the things that Jeff Johns screwed up, which there's a long line of things Jeff Johns screwed up.
We should probably acknowledge that Mark is here at some point.
Yes, Mark. Thank you for coming. I'd have said something sooner, but I was in the middle of an Aquaman tirade.
He was in a Jeff Johns rant, and I didn't want to interrupt him because once the scene frame gets going, you can't stop it so easily.
I do got to say, Mark, you do look terrifying.
Yeah.
Your lighting is just right.
I sit here in my evil lair. So, yeah, you can't bring me in mid-Jeff Johns rant.
Yeah.
All I can do is sit back and nod in agreement.
No, and here's the thing. Like, I honestly, I gotta preface it. Like some of the stuff Johns has done has been really, really, really good, right? Like his Hawkman in the early aughts was great, right? I thought his work with, I think he wrote himself into a corner, but his work with Wally on The Flash was really good, right? I think what killed that title was editing. I don't think the editor had enough of a vision for taking Wally into that next stage of life. But I don't think everything he's done bad, but he also has sort of messed up a lot of stuff.
I don't know. Like, I don't know if I'd agree with that. I mean, it depends on what you're talking about, but like I've found I think Jeff Johns might have lost some steam. Like I love his Aquaman. I'll say that. Like when I was reading Jeff Johns' Aquaman, I was really glad he was writing him because I felt like he was the only person who could actually write an Aquaman comic that readers nowadays would actually take seriously. Because I think a lot of people
writing to the time. Who's that?
Here's the thing, though, right? Like, no, because like everybody who has read Aquaman, right, already took him seriously. Like people that like grew up watching Saturday Night Live, or what was that? There was a I can't remember. There was a website that used to just riff on Aquaman all the time. Sean Baby stuff, right? Way back in the day. That's dating myself in internet years. Because that hasn't been around for like a decade. But with that would like, you know, make a, or if your only exposure to Aquaman had been reading, had been watching Super Friends in the 70s and 80s, right?
Yeah.
Then sure, you might think Aquaman is a joke, but if you actually have read the books, like they're high drama, they're like Shakespearean stuff,
right,
and they have been all the way back to the 70s, right? I mean, like Black Manta murdered Aquaman's son.
Right.
Like it was heavy stuff. And yeah, it's like, here you go. The metal's got it. Aquaman was always cool. I think people are just posers.
I think like see, and I would agree with you there because I always loved Aquaman. He was always a character that I enjoyed, and I never understood why we never had an Aquaman series that lasted long, you know, or like why people didn't take him seriously because, you know, he was always a great character. He always had a really, you know, he was, to me, you know, he reminded me of like, okay, people like Thor, but why don't they like Aquaman? You know, I never really.
Well, and here's part of the thing, right? Up until, I'm going to say, well, up until the death of Wally Queen, there had only been 5 characters that were in constant publication, 5 comic book characters in constant publication since their inception. Okay? Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and Green Arrow. Those are the only characters that have been in publication since the Golden Age. And then DC killed Green Arrow, right? But they'd already started introducing Connor Hawke, so Green Arrow book was still in publication. And then they had the 1 year later event where they killed Aquaman.
Right.
And that stopped publication on his character for a year and a half, right? And so that was, and then it wasn't the 1 year later. It was Millennium. I can't remember which one of the events in the thing. But the thing is like that had been the case. So now there's only been 3 characters that have been in constant publication. And DC's got to keep it because if they stop publishing Wonder Woman, they lose the rights and she enters the public domain like that. Like they miss a month on Wonder Woman and their contract with the estate's void, and he's been dead so long that she enters the public domain instantly. Because the rights were tangled up with Marsden's estate. So,
okay.
Yeah, so like DC doesn't own Wonder Woman. They own Wonder Woman on the contingency that she's continuously published.
Is that the same thing with Superman? Because every time you see him, it says. But every time you see him, it says special thanks to the Siegel family or whatever.
Yeah, that's because they didn't like the Siegel family won the lawsuit against DC, and so like they get stipend now from publication of Superman stuff. And they didn't before, but they do now. But like they still own, and like the other thing is the corporation owns, the corporation owns Superman, and then like the Siegels own like some share of it or something like that. It's not real ownership, but it's like they have to get paid back for it. But it's kind of the same way that like what's his name? Neil Gaiman owns Sandman, but he can never take it away from DC.
Okay.
And DC can use any of the characters except for Sandman himself in anything they want. And some of the characters he used actually existed before. Like Destiny was one of the horror hosts in the 70s, DC's horror books in the 70s. and I can't remember some of the other ones were too, but Morpheus the Sandman, like, if they want to use him, and he's part of the reason he died. Oh, spoiler alert for a 30-year-old comic. Part of the reason that he died at the end of his run was because, like, in order for them for DC to use Morpheus, they actually have to get written permission from Neil Gaiman for it.
Oh, okay.
So the new Sandman was all white, Daniel, right? They could just use it whenever.
Yeah, and that's actually the grandson of Hawkman. So
wait, why would Neil Gaiman agree to write that story? We want you to kill off the character that you have so control over, so that we can.
He still. I mean, when they do reprints, he still gets money for them.
I mean, they just put out the audio book.
Mm-hmm.
I've been meaning to check that out, and then they're doing I don't know, some sort of series, Netflix or whatever.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that comes up there. But anyway, we're totally off topic of everything.
there's no off topic when you're talking.
We're talking comics, you know,
deep into the nerd stuff. So Frank had contacted me when he first set the show up, and Mark, are you actually there, or did you get in a coffee or something? I think he's getting a coffee. So he's just like, I'm not getting a word in edgewise here. Coming in late was the worst thing I've ever done. Sorry, Mark, I'm a horrible host. Yeah, he went and got extra lighting too, and I was going to comment on it, but I was talking about, I can't remember now. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Like I said, when you contacted me about setting up the show, you sent me over a copy of the comic, and I read it. I really enjoyed it. It's good and weird, man. It's called, for those of you guys who don't know, it's called Macabre Motel. And I'm going,
based on this conversation, you're a very critical guy.
I am indeed. Hey, there's a message from Mark in the private chat. I'll step back in a few. I got something to do something right quick. So, okay. So he actually told us he wasn't going to be here, and I just didn't notice it. I am indeed a very critical person. I'm excellent at judging. But no, it was fun, man. As far as critique, the narrative is very loose. It's hard. I mean, it doesn't have a definitive beginning, middle, and end in a lot of ways. But I really felt that was because it was leading you into that next bit, right? It makes me really curious to know what happens on the first page of issue 2.
That's everybody's first question.
Yeah. That's I think that's a really good thing.
And that question is met with extreme anger when I always tell people it's a one shot. So.
No.
Yeah. Because people immediately see so much opportunity in this universe and the story. They say first off, the characters themselves can each have a single story about them, and then they say the motel itself is like a character that could expand and have a whole rotating roster of guests. So.
And then you have the best unreliable narrator, the girlfriend on the other side of the phone.
Yeah.
Right? Who I may be spoiling too much, guys, but yeah. Man.
So, interesting development note is that in the first draft of the script, there was no girlfriend. There was no. Well, it was just driving a car, and he has to pull over for whatever reason. And all the critiques I was getting on the script wisely said this dude is just he needs more characterization, he needs more drive, he needs more reason for being. And my goal was to make him like an everyman, so that everybody put yourself in his shoes. And they said,
absolutely
really want that. We wanted him to have character, him to go through a sort of to make this experience worthwhile, story-wise. And so I threw in the girlfriend, and though basically from the first draft to the second draft, 90% of the story remained the same, except the first page and the last page. The bookends of the story completely changed.
Yeah, no, I think so. For those to kind of give the audience here a pitch, kind of tell us a little bit about what the heck it is.
So it's a very familiar story for a lot of people, or at least premise for a lot of people. A guy is driving late at night. He's off to meet his girlfriend's family for the first time. And he's getting sort of tired. He pulls over the side of the road at this kind of motel that's all kind of run down and kind of creepy. And it's filled with a bunch of weird guests. And he's just kind of push it aside to get some shut-eye for the night. And it just gets kind of bizarre and more weird. And he tries to leave. And the guests aren't just kind of letting him go. So I would describe it as like a Twilight Zone episode, where it's like a rabbit hole that just spirals down and gets more weird and more bizarre the further you're along.
Well, and I'd like to say it's like a Twilight Zone episode up until the second commercial break, right? so if you guys have watched a lot of Twilight Zone out there, I think you'll know what I mean. It's not a dig. I've really enjoyed it, but I'm also the fact that there's actually. So, side note, just yesterday I was telling my son about Shaggy Dog stories and how much I love Shaggy Dog stories. And dang it, Frank, hoisted on my own petard.
Sorry about that.
Oh man, that's perfect. I love it. I love it even more.
Anyway, yeah, it's funny you say that about the second commercial break with the Twilight Zone, because there's a definite line that's drawn in this story between the first half and the second half. Mm-hmm. And I feel as if that line is drawn depending on who's reading it. You know, there's a moment between, okay, this is weird, and then it just goes off the rails. And that it goes off the rails at different points for different readers, for different folks, because everybody has that comfortability level as far as when they're in a weird situation or an odd situation. And the way I relate it is everybody meets weird people in their life, and they say to themselves, you know what, I only got to deal with this person for 30 seconds or a minute or an hour, whatever it is. I'm just going to muscle through it, and then I'll never have to deal with these people again, and it's just going to be over. And I think that's what this main character does. He meets these bizarre people, and he's just like, I'm here to sleep and leave. I don't have to see these people ever again. But it doesn't work out that way. So, and the moment he realizes that, or the moment's comfortability level of the reader who's reading it, who would just turn around and walk away, it's going to be different from person to person.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I think that's probably a true statement. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to read. Now, so question is, how inspired was it by real events?
It's not based on a true story. But I've spent time on the road. I think everybody stayed at a place that's kind of creepy, where you're like, I don't want to be here, but I don't want to go back on the road and keep driving. It is what it is. Just let me sleep and I'll be out. So, and everybody, the same token, everybody's met people, as I said, that are super creepy, that are super weird. And you just kind of like, okay, bye-bye, you know, you're doing it. You don't really try to engage with them or deal with them. You just kind of, so it's a component of both those two things, filled with a whole bunch of characters I've seen from movies and TV and comics over the years, just kind of all those different weirdos and characters that inhabit the motel. It's basically a cocktail of real life experiences mixed with various characters I've seen.
So, where is the creepiest motel you've ever stayed in?
The creepiest motel I've ever stayed in is actually pretty famous. It's south of the border, which is like in North Carolina, South Carolina area. It's the place everybody stops at when they're driving either to or from Florida, you know, and it's got a Mexican theme. It's got a gigantic sign of a Mexican guy wearing a sombrero.
I love old neon. Neon.
I mean, it was built decades ago. Yeah. In retrospect, it's a super racist place, but yeah, it's dirty. You could tell that the machines that wash the sheets are probably a couple decades old.
I think it's probably more the cleanliness that's racist than the design of the hotel.
And you know, it's probably a truck stop where truckers that are just on speed walk around all night and just so it's and they sell fireworks to everybody, and they got a really dirty diner that you could grab breakfast at. It's a creepy place, but it's interesting. There are signs for south of the border, at least. Yes, there are a million signs for it going.
Yeah, I've never heard of it. I'm from the High Plains, so I've been to Florida once in my life. So
south.
And we camped the whole way. But yeah, how about you, Nandor? Has there ever been a particularly creepy hotel you've ever stayed at?
I wish I had a story, but like I was thinking about it, and I haven't really stayed, all the places I've ever stayed, and usually anytime I travel somewhere, I usually try to stay maybe with a friend, or maybe if I'm getting someplace, I'll get there and just stay with my friend or family. But I haven't had, thankfully, I haven't had like a very weird experience. So I've been into some shady gas stations before that really like made me go, what was that all about? But like I haven't stayed. I don't think I would. I think I'd rather just sleep in my car somewhere.
I would usually rather sleep in my car if I ran into the thing where I just couldn't get my eyes open.
Yeah.
Just because like if I'm not planning on staying over somewhere, it's because I don't have any money. So if I'm gonna make it a 1-day trip because I don't have any money, and it's like, well, I'm not gonna make it in a day, and I still don't have any money. I'm gonna
pull over and
find an abandoned farmhouse and sleep out in front of it or something. But
that's a setup for another different horror story.
Very different horror story.
I do want to just butt in for a second and let you guys know I did read, especially you, Frank. I read the Macabre Motel. So and I really enjoyed it. I thought it had me guessing throughout it, and I really enjoy reading something where it feels unpredictable, and I'm always kind of like trying to figure it out. It's like okay, what's the theme here, or what are you trying to tell me? And I really like being analytical about those kinds of things. And I when I read the last panel, especially because when I got to the last page, I was like, wait, this is the last page. I was like, wait a second, because I got through it really quick, and I was like, wait, like what's going to be the magic trick here? What's going to be the thing that kind of sets it off? And when I finished it, I was like, oh man, nice. Like I was like, I had a smile on my face because I thought that's the way to do it. And I really liked where you took it, and it made my imagination, kind of wander. And I really enjoy when I read a story, especially one like that, that's very, mysterious and kind of and bizarre and all those types of things that make you kind of question reality and like what's happening and why is this happening to this character. So like I really liked it.
I appreciate that. It's got that psycho setting, classic psycho setting where I've heard say, yeah, I started reading this story and I'm like, I read this story before, and then they turn a couple pages and like, no, I haven't read this story before.
Right.
It does have a familiarity. It touches on a lot of experience. But it also doesn't feel like the same thing, right?
Right.
It's not like this, but it's as different. There are crossover similarities to Psycho, but it's as different from Psycho as Bad Times at the El Royale is different from Psycho, while having very similar settings and stuff, right? So, and if you guys, I don't know if you've seen Bad Times at the El Royale. I think
I've seen parts of it, but yeah, I haven't watched the whole thing.
I think it's amazing. I mean, I also like over the top, fight scenes and broken old men and all that kind of stuff. So I just thought it was great. But I guess a lot of people did not like Bad Times, and I don't understand it. I thought it was brilliant. But yeah, it's as different from them. There's similar settings. There's characters play out. It's human horror, all that kind of stuff factors in. But anyway, I mean, yeah. But back to your story, I really did enjoy it. I mean, Did you have the link so I can go ahead and put it down there in the chat?
I put it in the private chat. I'll do it again.
Maybe I think I lost it when I had to restart my machine. Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. I got it. Woohoo. Okay. We're going to copy, and we're going to paste this here. Now, I'm not sure if it's going to go over to YouTube. It looks like it's not. So I left my YouTube tab open for just such an occasion. Taxing my system resources, but I don't know what else to do.
I don't know what you're talking about. You're a bad host. You got all the tricks.
Oh man. Well, here's the thing: is I just don't plan for stuff really out. But yeah, so the Macabre Motel, it's there on Kickstarter. You can check it out. It is amazing. It's great stuff. I really, really enjoyed it. And what are you asking on that?
2,800 is my funding goal. I'm at 19 something, and I got 3 weeks left. So
yeah, that's not bad after a week.
No, yeah, that's really good.
So I'm looking forward.
It's seasonal. It's season appropriate, people. Get out there.
I don't know how it wound up like that. I made a horror comic, and then I'm like, it's October. Oh, what a coincidence! Let me just put it.
What a coincidence.
So, and the good thing is it's all done because my main goal is I want people, if you're backing for Halloween, I want you to read it for Halloween. So my goal is as soon as it ends on the 28th, on the 29th, you won't get the physical book, but I'm going to send out all the digital awards. So if you feel like reading I call it atmospheric horror because it's not like scary monster horror. It's got more of a creepy vibe to it. If you want to check out something like that for Halloween, you'll have it if you're back.
And it's $5 for the digital, and 10 for the print. And this is what are you making shipping at?
I got a couple variants. Oh, that's shipping included for domestic.
Well, look at that.
Yeah, so
that's hard to beat with a stick, man. Now, you had the art done, right?
Everything is finished. Everything is finished. So I'm not even gonna wait. I've made some mistakes in the past. I got other campaigns lined up. I don't want to kind of push my schedule back. So I'm not even going to wait until Kickstarter's funds clear. As soon as the campaign ends, I'm just going to call the printer, put it on the credit card, and try to get this book as quickly as possible to people.
Awesome.
Oh, dude, I didn't see this. The first 100 backers got a. I'm gonna share my screen. This is hilarious.
Yeah, I wanted to do something new. I want to do something different. That's a unique experience. So for the first 100 backers at the physical level, I'm giving off a motel key tag with the logo and the backer number on it. So
that's amazing.
Cool. So yeah. I wanted to do something. When you think of motel, what's the first thing that comes in mind? It's one of those objects that if you just describe it to people, they're just going to know what it is.
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is usually lice. That's or bed bugs. I have I work in human services, right? And sometimes that works out really well. Actually, most of the time I love my job. I think it's really cool. But I also, if I have one real fear in my life, it is bed bugs. And occasionally people have had, problems in their house. And you got to get an exterminator and all that kind of stuff. I have a really hard time going to hotels because every time I do, no matter where it is, I have to flip the mattresses and check them all. And yeah,
when I was in college, there was a breakout of bed bugs. It never affected me, but I've seen some kids that were affected by it, and it was kind of creepy. They were like drug addicts, just up all night, just kind of scratching themselves.
Oh man,
yeah, it's horrifying. It's horrifying. But yeah, so, and maybe this goes back to my creepiest hotel story. I'll go ahead. It's my show, so I'm going to tell you the story. So many years ago, when I was, hey, there's Tony Sizzle.
Hey, Tony.
Here's Tony. Anyway, many years ago, when I was first on my way to college, speaking about not ending up in a place, my mom and my brother and sister and our friend Roxy, we were all driving down from Denver, Colorado, where I lived, to Siloam Springs, Arkansas, where I was going to go to school. And we're getting ready to head out of Denver, and I'm looking at the map and the whole thing. And I turn around. I'm looking on the map, and I noticed that Las Vegas is directly south of Denver, Colorado. And I I didn't know that. That's crazy. Let's drive through. I know it's a little longer than going across Kansas, but let's go down, and then we can cut across Texas, and we can still get there, right? It'll add like 3 or 4 hours to the trip.
Yeah.
And we're driving along, and we cross the border into New Mexico, and I'm like, wait a second. I thought Las Vegas was in Nevada. Well, there's a little town of 70,000 people there called Las Vegas in New Mexico. There's no bright lights or anything. Somewhere I've got a picture of me and the whole crew in front of the Welcome to Las Vegas sign. It's a generic sign, brown, everything else. That extra 3 hours that we were taking, and a couple of other little stops, and we ended up, it's dusk, and we're in Amarillo, Texas, and we're all exhausted. And so we didn't budget for that, and so we were looking for some crappy little hotel to crash the night in, right? And we did not find one. That was, I mean, we were just looking for one, and the one we pull into, get the room and the whole thing, and we're getting ready to get the room, but the whole place just looks divey. It looks horrible. So my mom goes in there to negotiate the deal and everything, and I'm feeling kind of bad because I led us astray, right? But we're in the car, we're joking about pardon me, I was interested in a room, but first, how large are your bugs? I feel I need to know this because a place like this it's just gonna have bugs. You're right to admit this, but how big are they? Will they wake me up? Will I have to take them with me when I leave? What's the story? Anyway, so we're cutting up about it, having a good old time. And my mom comes out, and she gets in the car, and she shakes herself off. We're going to the Comfort Inn.
Oh, man. That would do it for me, too.
So suddenly, I'm like, how bad was this place? So that's my motel story. So Nandor, your comic is not about motels.
No, it's not.
So tell us about yours, man.
Yeah. So,
and I know you directed me to the first issue there on the internet, and I did not read it.
Oh, I'm still heartbroken. No.
Well, it's been a really busy week for me, man. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, no, I totally get it. I have a series called Seasons, and it's a superhero supernatural series that's planned to be 4 volumes, and each volume is going to be over 100 pages, and each volume is a different season of the year. And so it follows this young man through 1 year of his life, and with each passing season, he gains new powers and abilities. And it's a story really about, as you dive deeper into it, it's a story about identity and personal responsibility and kind of self-discovery in its own right. And each season has a different, whether it be, and it's a mix of both like a physical and kind of emotional obstacle that the character has to overcome. And in the first story, he fights his shadow or his shadow self. In the first story, Spring is more along the lines of I'd say almost a horror type, thriller type story. And then when we get into Summer, the second volume, which is on Kickstarter right now, that one's more of the kind of blockbuster, action-packed, kind of more, I'd say, more along the lines of a blockbuster superhero style story. And that's something that I wanted to do for the series as a whole, is each season will really be kind of its own style, its own thing, and that it's all about change. The entire series is about change. That's the theme. And so I kind of wanted to, do that with everything I could with it. And so I'd say fans of like James O'Barr's The Crow and The Sculptor by Scott McCloud and Midnight Nation by J. Michael Straczynski and Gary Frank, like people who kind of, have read those or might know of those, that's kind of along the lines that I'd compare it to. And yeah, right now, we're I launched it October 1st, and we're doing really well so far with the second volume. We're almost halfway funded, and I'm really, really excited to get this out there. For everyone who's watching, and you can read the entire first volume on seasonsthecomicbook.com. And for people that, really want the series, you can get both volumes on the Kickstarter too.
And I do have the webcomic version in the chat, so people can right-click it and open it in a new tab and read later.
Awesome. Yeah.
So there you go. How many pages is the book? There, have it from the murdered that guy asks.
So the first book is over 120 pages, and so is the second one. So they're each going to vary, but usually the first volume is definitely over 120, and the second one is too. So
yeah, I'm checking it out now, and yeah, I looked at the Kickstarter first, and then I was looking at the webcomic version. I was immediately struck because the art's different, and now you kind of dawned on me as to why it was so different, because they both have different feels to it.
Yeah,
it's that they're done by the same artist. I didn't realize that at first.
They are. Yeah. Anthony, he's an amazing guy, amazing artist, and we've been working on this, for a few years now, and he's grown so much, and it's something we wanted to do, whereas kind of show that visually with each season, kind of show, growth and more detail. And we're going to be adding color with each new book to really show that, really convey that idea of, this character trying to find wholeness, and visually show that with introducing more color and more kind of, pop to it, because the first book is mainly all black and white, and it really has to do with that idea of, that conflict of light and dark, and your shadow, and who you are. And then with the second volume, the main character, his name is Fletcher Hart Eames, and he's really on this quest of trying to figure out why this is happening to him, why he has these abilities, what's going on. He's really this fish out of water, this character who has so much potential and can feel that, feel that intrinsic potential inside him, but doesn't know where to channel it and what it is. And the powers themselves kind of are analogies, and the stories themselves are analogies to his own personal conflicts and demons that he's fighting.
Well, I did go ahead and load up the share screen here.
Awesome.
So you go actually check out the campaign itself. You got a tab over there, so I can manipulate it a little bit.
Yeah.
And so you spent the first volume was a couple of years ago. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So, and so do you have of course you're doing a 4-volume set, and that's going to be 500 pages when you're done then, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a big old thing.
Yeah, we're in it for the long run.
So, and you get wow, we can get the seasons 1 PDF for $1, huh?
The first issue, yeah, you get for $1, and then for the entire volume, you get for $5. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. And how many So what are you charging for shipping on your on the thing?
It's free domestic. Yeah,
free domestic as well. Wow, very popular choice.
Well, it makes it easy for people. I mean, you hate seeing the price, and then you click it, and you're like, oh, I got now a plus.
Yeah, exactly. Like I do that just for myself when I'm trying to back something, and I'm like, oh, it's only $15. I'm like, that's great, and then I click on it, and it's like, oh, it's actually 20 or 25 because of shipping, and I'm like, oh, usually I'd still do it, but it's a hurdle. It's another hurdle for the potential backer, and I think it's just an easy way to go about it.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I wish that they have on the on both Indiegogo and Kickstarter, the little tabs here on the side don't always say shipping costs, or even usually don't say shipping costs.
Right.
So you gotta select it to find out what it costs for shipping.
Yeah, I do have later down on the campaign page. There's a shipping tab, and it says free on all domestic shipping. So I tried to put it on there, but it's just low
Right.
on the page.
Cool. I tell you, I mean, and your artist has really got some great stuff on there. I know that I was looking, like I said, I looked through the first couple pages of the online version, and
Yeah.
that's which I think I'm sharing right now. I'm trying to anyway.
Yeah, I see it.
Oh, good. But yeah, I was really impressed with the line work and the cross hatching and stuff. It looks real fun.
Awesome.
So how did you meet your artist?
Yeah, so I actually met him through DeviantArt. I had the story all written out for the first volume, and I was really ready to get going. And I had worked with someone else kind of on some trial pages, but it just wasn't the visual style that I really needed for it. So I kept searching and searching, and I would just go through DeviantArt every day, like going through hundreds of pages, and hundreds of pieces. And there was a piece that Anthony had done. It was a black and white piece of a scene from It's a Wonderful Life. And it was just like so detailed and so beautiful, honestly. And I was like, I wonder if this guy like does comics, like what's his thing. So it was so funny too, because it was so serendipitous, because he was looking for work, like he needed work like right away. And I was like, hey, I have this idea, and like I have this story like all written out, and like I'm ready to go right now. And he was, on fire for it. And what started as a good collaboration, turned into a really good friendship. And we've been really at this for about 4 years now. With getting the first volume done and working on volume 2. And, we've been doing our best to get it out there where we can. And I think it was important for us to, put it out there for free and for people to read and to see if they like it and kind of invest in it that way. And it's also on Webtoon for people to read, and Macroverse, and Tapastic. Comixology as well, so people can read it on there, or buy it through there too. But we've really been trying to build it up and really share it with everyone we can, because it is going to be a long series, and the only way we can keep making it is if we get the support we need for it. And we really want to finish the story, and we really want to share with people where does Fletcher end up, what does his life look like a year from now. And what's really cool too is with it's set in real time, so like as you read the book, you'll see the days changing and the months changing, and summer kicks off right on June 21st, right on the first page. And it's just like you really feel like you're on this journey with this character.
Matthew can't hear you.
Yeah, I think you're muted. Yeah.
Curses. Well, I'm back now. What I was going to say, one of the things I think is so neat is how real time in comics, it doesn't often get treated very well, especially if you're reading superhero comics. Everything's in the eternal now. So you have this weird aspect where you're reading a story that is supposed to happen now, but clearly happened in 1994. Something like that. And that's so I think it's neat to be able to play with time differently than we typically see in comics.
Right.
I can't remember who I was reading or watching a commentary of the idea that dang it, my brain skipped out on me for a second. Oh, that the reader controls the flow of time in a comic, and in the way they don't in other media, right?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the immediacy of it. And I think that's a real truth to that. But at the same time, when you look at that in terms of a story element, like time is a story thing
Yeah,
that you don't always think about. So I think it's fun to be able to work on that.
yeah. Like when I was first developing the story, I wanted to. I love always trying to and embrace the medium. Like if you're going to tell a story in that medium, do your best to really kind of embrace it on the most, I think, ground level you can and most fundamental level you can. And in my like naivety, like when I was first developing the story, I thought, wouldn't it be really cool if you started a story in January and you ended it in December, like, because comics come out on a monthly basis, and I thought, wouldn't that be cool if like there was a series that actually would do that, and like would be in real time, where like when a character was experiencing something in June or July, that's actually the month that it came out. And I thought, okay, so I know I'm not going to like get picked up by a big publisher to like do that. So what's another way I can kind of do that? And I thought, okay, the graphic novel format would be the best way to do that. And, that way it's not so time constrained, but people get that, still get that sense of time moving and that 1 year journey that I was trying to get at.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that. One of the things I noticed in the chat a little bit ago, sorry, I spaced off looking at stuff.
You're good.
Because, Mark just disappeared, and I was like, oh, hope he's okay. Didn't hear anything at all. Anyway, one of the things I was talking about in the chat, Tony Sizzle points out that Savage Dragon happens in real time, which I didn't know, because I don't read Savage Dragon, because it terrifies me. Anyway, I don't really have a reason. I just never was intrigued by it. But another story, mainstream, that nearly hits real time actually is James Robinson's Starman.
Oh, okay.
Which starts in '94, and it was started. First publication was in '94, and then the series wrapped, I think, in early 2002. But it's actually supposed to take place in a 5-year time frame from '95 to 2000.
Okay.
So actually, supposed to end in 2000. That's actually a plot point in the story, and for the sake of that story, it actually cements DC Comics timeline, like, in time.
Oh wow!
So
that's awesome.
If you're reading Starman, like, it's not the rotating timeline. Like, things have specific set years and things like that. And so the timeline, where there was a time where it all matched up with that, if you were reading it about the time it was coming out, where like these events all formed like this Mitchnerian 20th century. But that's been 20 years ago now, so you don't quite have that thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that Spider-Man series that we were talking about before really does that, where Spider-Man he graduates high school in the 60s when the books premiered, and they age him in real time. So in the 70s he's in college, and in the 80s he's growing up, and in the 90s he's kind of in his middle age. So it was cool. And also Peter Davis putting out this the same thing as Age in Real Time, but he's putting out Spider-Man Alien Symbiote.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which it takes place in the 80s when he had his symbiote, so it's kind of cool that they go back and they actually put him in an era and to see how that works out.
So, and back in 2005, my buddy Chris Lawton and I decided to build a universe together. And Ideal Comics, we've been doing that since then. And we have a webcomic, Force of Good and Evil, that we started writing and publishing back in 2006. And it's on hiatus right now. Just finished up the 25th, 27th story in that ongoing series.
Wow.
Yeah, it's almost 600 pages. So of none of the art's as pretty as the stuff you guys have shown tonight, though, I gotta say. Because when we started, I shouldn't say none of it, but most of it isn't. Because when we started, it was just Chris and me, and we're both writers. Neither of us are artists, right? So we just wanted to get it out there and it's one part of our larger superhero universe that we wanted to tell stories from, and it's a humorous take on all of that. And the story Forces is a story of two best friends who, in their junior year of high school, take an aptitude test, and they get pitched. One goes to superhero high school, and one goes to supervillain high school. and these two schools are in the same town. They're little small rural city in western Wisconsin, and they had the school rivalry. And these kids grew up in this town, never knew these schools were here, and it's all part of this big government conspiracy. And that's the thing. But with it, we intentionally set it up a fixed timeline in our universe, which is what brought me to this. So, like, that story happens in 2004. Well, it starts in 2004, in the fall of 2004. And where we're at in the story right now, it's August 2005. So all of that stuff we've been telling so far all happens inside of one calendar year. It hasn't even clicked around to October yet. So that's part of what that is. So, like, I really and like every one of our other stories we have for our anthologies or mini comics or whatever, they all have a timestamp on them. So it starts out with like a date line. So it'll be like, 2012 Fremont City, Colorado. And like, that's where it starts with. So, right where to pick up with it or whatever. Yeah. 1939 New York City. Right. And so, like, they all fit into this huge, like, timeline and epic story and all kinds of alternate history stuff. But yeah, I love the idea. So you're talking about, like, this is one calendar year, and it's all real time, and we're going to see how these people progress through this. That's intriguing to me because I'm trying something similar. yeah,
of course. Like, that's such a. And I even went one step further to where I write like the specific day, so like I looked at the calendar and I was like, okay, when is June 21st, in this year? And I was like, okay, it's June 21st, Wednesday, that year. And I wanted to make sure that it felt as authentic and real as you can. And so when someone reads it, they're like, it makes it like, well, this actually happened in the real world, and someplace that I'm far removed from, but it just added another kind of sense of relatability to it too, and I think a lot of people, a lot of readers like gravitating toward that, and I always try to write my stories and characters, to be as relatable, but also as kind of mysterious and entertaining at the same time.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think that's a big part of it. Is also, like, I think it ties into, that those sort of things, looking at time, looking at the place of it. I think it connects us to our own lives, right? Yeah. And I'm one of these guys. I really think that, like, all stories are metaphors for our greater experiences, right?
Yeah.
So, I think that's one of the things that we like. Every story is metaphor. Every story is myth. And so it's important for us as writers, as creators, to understand that and not to make and to make it appeal to the readers and where they're at, and really understand that it's for the audience, and finding out how do we best connect it to the audience. So I think that's a thing. And one of the things, like, too, is I always think is, and one of the reasons that I'm such a fan of the fixed timeline idea is because I really love the idea of legacy, especially in hero comics.
Yeah.
About moving on, about, that, sometimes your heroes, sometimes your brave warriors don't make it, and who's left behind and what do they do to carry on and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes you just grow old and die, and that happens too. And maybe that's not even a bad thing. And so that's one of the things that we've wanted to work into that too. But
that's awesome.
When it comes to let's kind of change topics a little bit here. What do you think are your big motivations? And we'll start with Frank because he hasn't said anything in a while.
I was debating on whether or not to bring up Watchmen, pretty much, when you guys were talking about fixed times.
Yeah, right.
Like, is it going to make sense, or am I just open up a can of worms?
Well, I will tell you that when I was 20, I thought Watchmen was brilliant. By the time I was 40, I felt it was crap. So take that for what it's worth. And if you want to keep going, you certainly can.
It popped into my head too, Frank. Like when we were talking about it here, and I was trying to think of other stories that kind of do that, because I just reread Watchmen actually a few months ago, and I noticed that about it. I hadn't really noticed how much Alan Moore was trying to keep it contained in a certain time frame. It's supposed to be after I think he says it in his afterword or foreword to the book, where it's like he wanted to, follow up George Orwell's 1984 with, a 1985, and this is like what followed it.
Well, especially when it was resonating with me when Matthew was talking about sometimes heroes just grow old,
Yeah.
I have that picture of Sally Jupiter just old and grumpy and drinking in a retirement home. I'm like, that's just what happens to heroes. I mean, they did their job.
And I will say one of the things that Moore does excellently in Watchmen, because it's not I should probably be being too loose with it. It's not crap. It's not 100% internally consistent when you really start to drill down on it. And it doesn't treat its mythology with a lot of respect. That said, the craft that goes into Watchmen is top notch.
Yeah.
In terms of like language use, pacing. Gibbons is a craftsman of the nth degree, right? Mm-hmm. And so in terms of it's philosophically a mess, but artistically that's maybe a different story. And I think I really think the biggest harm that a lot of people that Watchmen has done to the comic landscape, and I think it's notable, isn't Watchmen, it's people misreading Watchmen. Mm. Because one of the things that, like, Alan Moore had a lot of disrespect for Steve Ditko, right? Mm-hmm. And he went out of his way to trounce Steve Ditko's work in the Charlton books, and that's a lot of what it was. He originally pitched it to ruin the Charlton universe. I don't know if you guys know that. Like,
I knew that he wanted to, it was meant to be originally the Charlton characters, because DC just had acquired them, and he wanted to, work with them, but it's very interesting to see that, because you put Ditko and Moore in a room together, and there's no agreement or agreeing going on anywhere with their worldviews or anything, and I think Moore is definitely a product of his time, and so was Ditko.
Yeah, their times are not that differently separated either, but
right.
Moore is really old. Of course, Ditko's dead now, but I think he is anyway. Anyway, but
then you read sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but you read Moore's Supreme, and you read some of the other stuff that he's done with superheroes. And it's really interesting because it's almost like, Watchmen was the deconstruction of the hero, but in some of Moore's other books that he's written, it's like he has this nostalgic factor, this idea, this ideal that he holds to with these other characters. And so it's kind of like you see his optimism when he wants to show it and when he's trying to get to something, but he also sees, I think, the faults and trying to
he'll never admit that though.
Right, he won't.
And here's part of the thing though. I really believe that Moore, and I've said this on the show before, I believe that Moore is an honest writer, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And and back to the Ditko thing, like he has utter disrespect for Ditko in every way, right? At the same time, there is one hero in Watchmen, and that's Rorschach, which is supposed to be a personal slight at Ditko. Mm-hmm. Right? He's crazy. He's unkempt. Everyone hates him. He's Mr. A. He's the question. He is intentionally intended to poke fun at Ditko's most personal creation. Right?
Right.
He's the only good person or close to good person in the entire story. Right?
Mhm.
Everyone else is a coward. Everyone else is disingenuous. Everyone else is a sham. Right?
Apathetic.
Except,
Yeah.
apathetic. Except for Rorschach, he's the only honest person in the entire thing. And I think that it was just that, you know, Moore is an honest creator, even if he's not, you know, whatever. I don't think he could let himself lie about, you know, who this character would be. And so that's why, like, you know, I think that's why we have Rorschach. And actually, Tim in the chat says he's the only one with an actual moral code. Yes.
Yeah.
And when Nandor was talking about his hopeful heroes, I kept thinking of Promethea as the one that kind of pops into my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I feel I love Moore's work. I love V for Vendetta. I love the Swamp Thing run. I love From Hell. I thought From Hell was brilliant, but Promethea definitely has a whole different kind of feel to it. It feels a lot more optimistic. Feels a lot more heroic.
Mhm.
And I feel that's him doing superheroes, even though they're not called superheroes. I think in the book they call them.
Well, and that's one of the things that I've talked to Matt Kratz. I don't know if you guys know Matt or not. He does an awesome comic called Kyrie. It's a Roman era adventure story. Really great stuff. But one thing I've talked to him about it, and he begrudgingly has to agree, superheroes are, because part of Matt's position is that there's too many superheroes in comic books. We need to have other genres of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't disagree. We need more Westerns. We need more. I mean, that's why, like, Frank, your comic is, I love it. And it's like totally not my wheelhouse of stuff, right? Like, because I am a superhero dude, but at the same time.
Why Alan Moore, he put, forget what it's called, the pirate comic in Watchmen. He's like, the universe with superheroes, they're not going to be reading superhero comics. They're going to be reading other stuff.
Yeah. Well, actually, I don't necessarily agree with that either, because up until
that was his reasoning, or at least that's what I read.
Yeah, well, I understand his reasoning, but I'm saying, like, up until the 80s, you know, we had cowboys in our universe, and we still had Western comics. We have astronauts in our universe, and we still have astronaut comics.
I'm rewatching The Boys season 1, and they got every single one of the superheroes in their universe has a comic or a movie.
Yeah, well, and it's like, also, you're like, you know, we there was Bob Hope comics, there was, you know, Jerry Lewis comics, there was Our World's at War. I mean, our armies at war.
Dark Freighter. Black Freighter, that's what it is.
Yeah, Black Freighter. But anyway, the also the thing about it is why I think the Black Freighter was really cool in Watchmen is because it juxtaposed, and it brought out some of the similar themes within the story, because the stories, even though some of the tropes are different, there's still a uniformity to it, right? Comic books are just fairy tales; they're just myths, right?
Yeah.
Superheroes, they're the same.
I'm thinking of the Odyssey with Odysseus. It's a superhero tale.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, some of those, there's similar storytelling elements in all of these genres, and that's one of the things I think is great on it. So, I'm not going to put that one on the screen. That's funny. But anyway, one of the things I want to get back to, because Tim's comment right here about the Archie Bunker effect. I think that Mark may have just come back.
Hey guys,
are you back, Mark?
Yeah. Sorry,
you're even creepier now
than before.
There we go. We were talking
I'm
about
out in a bunker, man. All this stuff going on.
Oh man, he's coming to us from an undisclosed location. So I'm going to change topics real quick. I want to finish up one thing though. But I do think it's true. The Archie Bunker effect is one of those things that I think is phenomenal, really great. I don't know. Are you guys familiar with All in the Family?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So one of the things that I love about All in the Family was that was it Neil Simon? I can't remember the guy's name right now.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
Producer, writer, creator, the guy. I'm forgetting his name for sure. But anyway, the idea is that, like, he was, 1960s liberal guy. He was basically the meathead, right? The son-in-law. And his dad was, Archie Bunker was an open pastiche of this dude's father. If you watch the series as a whole, Archie was right. Meathead leaves his wife, Gloria's wastes her life away on a string of guys. You know, just forsaken, like the whole thing. Archie, you know, settles down, buys a bar, raises a Jewish kid, and he just loves people. He ends up he's this rough guy, but he takes care of people. He works hard. People respect him because he takes care of people and he works hard. And he ends up being the hero of the story, right?
Right.
Because the writer, he couldn't lie about his dad. And he loved his dad. So even if his dad was backwards, he still loved his dad. And Archie is the hero of All in the Family. And I think that that's one of the things that you have with Watchmen, where because Alan Moore didn't love Steve Ditko, but he wouldn't lie either, you end up with Rorschach being the only hero in Watchmen.
I mean, that's kind of why I think the character is so brilliant, because everybody, the big controversy now, especially with the show, is Rorschach a racist or misogynist, or is he a white supremacist? Because in the show, that's the icon that they pick up, that's the master.
Mhm.
And he really is a Rorschach test. You can look at him and see a million different things.
Yeah, it's interpretation. Yeah, that goes into it.
Yeah. So, but yeah. So, Mark.
Yeah.
So, thanks for coming. I'm sorry that we kind of left you in the dust and then you had to leave, and I didn't know if you were ever coming back.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, since I haven't said like hardly anything to you, let's start at the beginning. How did you get into comics?
Yeah, so fan since I was a small child, reading Disney comics, Casper the Friendly Ghost, Richie Rich, and then I watched Super Friends, and I watched the Batman 60s show in reruns, but still was watching that. And then I saw on the shelf in the bookstores, when they still have spinner racks and shelves for comics, yeah, that far, I saw Batman 404, and it was Batman, so I snapped that up and owned it for about 15 minutes as I was just looking at the pictures, highly confused by what's going on, like, where's the Batmobile? Why aren't we in costume? And why are those women attacking him? He just defended them from some thug. I didn't get any of that. Like, this does not make sense. And then my sister saw the word prostitute, told my parents, the book was taken away, and I didn't get to read it till like 5 years later.
Oh, I think
So
you
that's,
muted it.
I mean, I love comics. It's,
Muted yourself again, Matt.
It was me. I said
that was him. Okay.
Yeah, it was me.
Yeah.
I said, wait a second. I just realized, isn't 404 the first issue of Batman Year One?
Yeah.
That's a heck of a time to jump into reading Batman, my friend.
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't till years later, though, I was flipping through the comic store in my town, Cosmic Cat, and I'm going through the Batman box, and I saw that cover, and it just like went off in my head that like I know this cover. I don't know where, but I know it. And then I got it and reread it and was like, oh my gosh, that's that issue that I saw years ago when I was a kid. Yeah. So I snapped that up, got into the Dark Knight Returns, and just loved Batman. And I always wanted to do comics. And then when webcomics popped up, that's when I saw my avenue to get going with it. Mm-hmm. Just being able to put it out myself, my way, doing what I want to do.
Cool. So, now Guano Guy is your character, which is an obvious homage, right?
Yeah, right. Obviously.
So, obviously.
Somebody said recently it was like Batman 66, but with the tick. And I'd say that's pretty fair. I mean, those are influences.
Okay,
sure.
Okay. That's a good way to say it. That's a good way to look at it. And, of course, I noticed the pouch on the side of his head, right? I have
got a lot of pouches.
Man, I was just laughing with a buddy about pouches the other day because I grew up, I started reading comics. I can't give you a number on it. I don't remember, but it was my first regular monthly Batman comic was the one where Commissioner Gordon had a heart attack, right?
Okay, yeah.
And I'm not good with remembering numbers, but this is like 1991, like the February issue, and I got it like just around Christmas time, right? And I bought a couple other my Green Hornet. I started reading with started reading with DuckTales and that kind of thing. But I picked up this issue with it had Batman and Zorro on the cover, Brayfoggle art, just phenomenal stuff. And the last page, Commissioner Gordon's laying on the ground with a heart attack, and I was just like, that was it. I have been hooked ever since, right? I was playing with comics before that, but that became like a defining moment in my life. I was 11, right? So
Yeah.
I came into it a little bit late for a lot of people that like grew up reading comics. But that was something that just defined my life at that point. When you were started jumping into making web comics, was Guano Guy your first creation on that, or how did that work out?
Yeah, I was kicking around a different idea, but it was a much bigger one. So I started writing a lot of gag stuff because I've also always been into comedy, and I did stand-up for a while. So I kind of married those two things of doing stand-up and really liking superheroes and comics. And Guano Guy was a much simpler, a smaller concept to get into, where I could have a lot of fun and explore just a lot of comedic ideas and have fun with comics and kind of poke fun at them too, but still out of, a standpoint of love. So yeah, and the Guano Guy became the first one that I launched, and really want to get around to like a second book next year. But this one, it's it's a lot of fun.
So when did you get on the web with that?
2011, 2012, somewhere in there, and did it for a couple years, and then shopped it around for a few years after that. Once the original artist left, I went to trying to shop to companies with a new artist, and then after that didn't work out, it took a couple years to kind of refigure, found a new artist, and then I've been hard at work at it for the last since early 2018. Been really just booking on it. So
how many is your third print volume that's out, that's your crowdfunding right now?
So it's number 3, but there's also an issue 0, 1/2, 1.5, and 2.5. So it's actually the 7th.
So
comic.
You did read comics in the 90s then, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah. I took it way farther than they did.
6 7/8. Oh man, that's hilarious. So tell us, what is this
Take a deep breath before you get out the question.
Okay, so what do we have to offer that's different in volume 3 that's not there in the other fractional ones?
Oh, yeah. So issue 1, 2, and 3 are actual continuity issues where like each one's building upon the next.
Okay.
The issues that I've done that are the half issues, the 0.5s and 0, are filled with short stories, all just like little 3-4 page stories that are just snippet fun, very quick in and out. And now, like issue 2 and issue 3 have a full length story, but then once you get past that, there's a bunch of short stories again, and I think I'll stick with that format where I can pump out a 40-page story, 40-page issue twice a year with continuity and the fun short stories that I love writing as well.
Now, you're if I'm remembering right, you are on board with the Terraform Studios, right?
Yeah.
Luke. Why can't I remember Luke's last name?
Stone.
Stone. Jeez. Yeah, I had him on a few weeks ago to talk about just after they announced and launched the whole thing, and it was, man, you guys got a house full of really interesting people, full of stuff. So when Luke got a hold of me last week, and he's like, "Do you have any chance that Mark can get on before the end of his campaign?" And I was like, "I'm booked, but we'll see if everyone else is cool with it." So, and I believe Frank's words were "the more the merrier," but
Sounds like me.
So, well, I do have the page loaded up here in another tab. Hang on a second. I want to close that and switch there and click this button here. Look at that.
There we go.
Can you do you have $1 for the Guano Guy? And so your goal's 3,000, and you're really only, what is that, 300 back from that, right? Am I doing the math right? Close to 300?
Close. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty close.
Yeah, pretty close. Not bad estimate. So, And how big is the number 3 book? How many pages are we looking at?
So this one's it's a 32-page book, 29 interior pages. I slip one in the back cover. So a lot of good stuff there. And I've had the same artist team for the last 3 issues, so that's really good. It keeps getting better. I've already seen the first couple pages of issue 4 coming out next year, and I had like a jaw drop moment when I got the first one. The step forward, like the leap forward that the artist took with his style, I was just so surprised. So I'm already getting pumped about issue 4, and I still got tons of work to do on this one as far as, get it off to the printer and get those packages sealed up and off in the mail to the backers. But I'm looking forward.
And so your the PDF you have for $3. Am I reading that right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So for people who've already got those other PDFs, just $3 for the new one, $15 for the full PDF set. All the comics, $40 for all 7 that we have so far. So that's pretty good. Yeah. Plus it's close to 200 pages at this point, so it's racking up.
So 2.5. My goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, you also have. And you're going through it. I got so busy laughing, I hadn't realized there was a 0.5 for everyone. Are you planning a 3.5 as well?
Yeah, I think the 0.5s may have ended at this point. We're going to go to 4 and 5 next year because I'm just packing those short stories into since we're going to do 2 a year, I'm just packing in as a big volume with the main story and all the short stories. But the halves were real fun for a while. And
that's that's amazing. Okay, so also the 1 through 3 of the regular prints are 20. So that's pretty good for those books. And are they all the 32 page size?
So issue 2 was a 40 pager. So 44 if you can count the cover and whatnot. And then issue number 1 was a 20 pager interior. Although I've been told that you get about 30 pages of value out of it because I wanted to pack so much into it. Kind of like how first seasons of a series work, where like every episode is such a big deal. That's how I wanted number 1 to be. So a lot happens.
Yeah. Well, and here this is you've got a package with a whole bunch of stuff for the Geek Girl book.
Yeah.
That's quite
Guano guy's already crossed over, so he got a couple good appearances in with Geek Girl.
Sweet. Yeah, she's I don't know if you guys have checked that out or not. It's pretty. I've only read like the sample stuff because I'm poor. But quality stuff though. Quality stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, his book's a lot of fun, and he's another guy. Like I backed his Kickstarter, and then we just kind of become friends. I mean, we're compatriots in making comic books, and I was able to get Guano Guy into the book. It was supposed to just be, a background appearance, but he decided to do so much more with it, and I wasn't going to argue about that. Like, yeah, if you want to give him lines and let him become part of the action, I'm happy for it. Guano Guy even got a mention. As when the book got reviewed, like the reviewer mentioned, like, oh, I love these all these new characters, and he included Guano Guy and Mr. Marvel's Man as part of the new characters, not knowing it was a cameo.
How fun is that?
It was Sam hit it right because it was a very Guano Guy-esque appearance of like actions going down, and these other heroes step in and start saving the day for free, and he's like, well, I mean, if there's nothing to be made off of this, let's just get out of here and go home.
So if you were going to define, other than, of course, being an homage to Batman, who is Guano Guy?
I've always liked to describe it really closely as like it's Seinfeld with superpowers. It's just a cast of jerks who don't know they're jerks. Their self-awareness is terrible. Because his rival, Mr. Marvelous Man, is like he's got the mind of a 5-year-old. He was floating through space through his whole childhood. So now that he's a full-grown superhero, he still doesn't have the actual life experience to be a full-grown adult, so he looks at everything so simple. If his manager tells him it's okay, he just goes with it. And we have a reporter character, Rita Ratika, who is trying to make her career reporting on these events. And it's going to be revealed pretty soon. She really has the power to do a lot more than just worry about her career. But she's a career-focused person.
Very cool. Very cool.
But yeah, I mean, there's a ton of influence. I feel like when I watch a lot of Cartoon Network and like the late night Comedy Central cartoons, it feels like that to me, but on paper. And that's really what I'm striving for.
So I have to say, I've seen the character around the internet, but I didn't really know anything about it. So, but it sounds like a lot of fun. Sounds like a lot of fun. And so, of course, I did put the Kickstarter in the chat, so people can go check that out.
Thanks.
And all of that kind of stuff. And I'll there's nothing in the description right now, but when I get done with this video, since I have everybody's links, I will drop them in there.
Awesome.
So cool. Well, guys, it is about 9 o'clock, which is when I normally wrap up, unless we're on some sort of huge tangent that has to be wrapped, that has to be tied up. And I think we've tied all the tangents up. So I think we did a really good job of that, guys. Congratulations.
I missed out on Watchmen. I'm sorry for myself on that one.
Yeah, Watchmen ended. That was like only 2.5 minutes. I was surprised.
Yeah, it was really short. It was pretty short Watchmen rant. So
yeah, we didn't get into Doomsday Clock, you know.
Well, see, I can't care about Doomsday Clock, so I didn't read it at all.
Oh man,
it's not even that I don't care.
It's great. It's great.
I can't care. So let me play this out what I'm talking about. It'll define my dialogue, and you guys can have your judgments about that. So there are some things that I don't care about. Like, I don't care about Doctor Who. It's not that I think Doctor Who is bad. It's that I just don't care about it. I care about so many things. I know about so many things, and it has this large, expansive, like, history and mythology. And if I wanted to care about it, I'd have to really invest in it. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to care about it. So I don't care about it. Then there are things I can't care about because I either will be nothing but saucy, or it would break me in some way. Right? Yeah. And I can't care about Doomsday Clock. Part of that is because, like, it was supposed to have happened like years ago.
Yeah.
And it didn't. And any momentum that it would have had for the universe that Bendis already ruined is gone. So I can't care about it.
It's weird to have to build a world on an event that was supposed to happen, and then long after the event's supposed to happen, the world's already occurred, and like, oh wait, don't forget to read how we got here.
Yeah. And then I mean, and it's sort of like, you know, I was getting back into DC after the New 52 because the New 52 kind of it ruined me. I don't want to get into that right now because that's a whole hour's conversation. But I was getting back into it, and I was picking up Danny Abnett's Aquaman. Great stuff, man. Just big war scenes, political intrigue, magic, monsters. It was amazing. And then Kelly Sue DeConnick took over the title and ruined it so hard. just right in the neck with the garroted decades of story characterization. I mean, not even the continuity, because that doesn't even exist anymore. But the just ruined it. Anyway,
we're done.
We're done.
Yeah, we're done. Okay.
So I can't care about Doomsday Clock. It might have been great. It probably wasn't.
All right.
It was good.
So let me ask you one question. So the hand from the creation of the universe, was that Dr. Manhattan?
Supposed to be.
Then it wasn't good.
Well, it depends on which universe you're talking about. But
you didn't create them all.
Just
no,
the
I
one.
wouldn't. No, I mean, I don't. I wouldn't say so. It's like for what Doomsday Clock did. I think when it comes to kind of being an antithesis to Moore and his idea of what superheroes are, because Jeff Johns is, I mean, I feel like he wrote JSA, he wrote a lot of the Golden Age characters, and he does a really good job at I think bringing in those values that older heroes and I think comics from the 60s on to the 70s before the 80s came on. Like he does a good job at arguing the point of Watchmen, and I think it's really interesting when you philosophically debate it, and that's what makes it a good read, in my opinion.
So, I firmly believe that because I saw this happen with Kingdom Come, the minute you take an alternate history story and impose it into a universe that's supposed to be continuing, you ruin it. Both of them become awful. That's what the minute Kingdom Come started touching the mainline DC universe, the mainline DC universe died. I mean, it really did. Like the post-crisis universe, which had rocky bumps with it, but it was a Mitchnarian. I mentioned this earlier. It was a Mitchnarian story, and they killed it by roping it to Mark Waid's stupid story, and because Watchmen's not an honest story. I mean, not Watchmen. Kingdom Come's not an honest story either. But that's a whole different.
Oh yeah, no, that's interesting, man. Like I really appreciate your views, and I love talking about different comic book stories. I think it's important that the companies really try to do a job in service for every fan, and I think that's what they need to focus on.
Well, I think that and there are like different tones that work really well, like Sean Gordon Murphy's Dark Knight.
White
Knight stories.
Yeah,
those self-contained are pretty good. I kind of think that Curse of the White Knight kind of killed itself in that 7th issue, betrayed some of its fundamental premises so that Murphy could score points with his lefty friends, but. As a whole, I mean, and the craft that went into the story, for the most part, was really good. And his designs are phenomenal. Dude's a beast.
Yeah, definitely agree.
Yeah. But yeah, that whole thing was different. But like the first Batman White Knight was a tour de force in every way. So. Yeah, and that's one thing Tim in the chat says, not all stories can coexist. That is very true. That is true. Although, I do think a universe can be big enough to encapsulate both silly genre stories and serious drama. And I think Peter David's Young Justice is a perfect example of that. I don't know if you guys have read it. It was classic. Not Bendis' new Young Justice. That's garbage. Right. the original... From the late 90s, early aughts, Peter David Young Justice series. So funny. Cool. Anyway, guys. Yeah. Thank you guys for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Hopefully you guys will meet those campaigns all in progress. I think it's really great, you guys who check it out, because I do have a few people that check me out on replay on Friday and Saturday. So awesome. Go check them out. The links will be in the description. And I hope you guys really enjoy your time here. And till next time. Hey, I will actually go ahead and also mention that you can buy Ideal Comics e-comics for dirt cheap at our website. idealcomics.net/shop. That'll be in the description too. So, thanks for coming, guys. Mark, Frank, Nandor, I really enjoyed this time, and I'm going to go get some supper. So we'll talk to you guys later.
All right, thanks, Matt. See you guys.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Yes, of course.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.